Appreciate everybody being here in person. And item 1 on our agenda is introductions, and I'll just go ahead and start. My name is Noah House, City of Cotati, and we will go to the right.
Jane Riley, Napa Sonoma Collaborative.
Ada Chan, ABAG MTC.
Chris Barney, SCTA, RCPA.
Ellen McDowell, City of Healdsburg.
Sheila Walski, City of Santa Rosa.
Elliot Pickett, City of Brenner Park.
BC Caps, RCPA, SCTA.
Beth Britt, SCTA, RCPA.
Jennifer Gates, City of Sonoma.
Will Lyons, Unincorporated County, Permit Sonoma.
Danny Trey, SCTA, RCPA.
Adam Garcia, SCTA, RCPA.
And then we'll go to Zoom attendees.
Good morning,
Kevin
Tanya
Thompson
Nara,
from
SCTA, RCPA, sorry.
Hi, Kevin Thompson from the City of Cloverdale.
Nancy Waltering, City of Santa Rosa.
No, SCTA, RCPA.
Right, and that is that everyone on Zoom? Not quite.
Hi, I just joined. Where are we doing? Introductions.
Introductions.
I'm Emily Betts from Smart. Thanks.
Okay, great. Thank you, everyone. Item 2 is announcements, and I'll turn it over to Chris Barney.
Yeah, I have one announcement. We have a new staff member at SCTA RCPA, Steph Britt. So she was most recently at the Transportation Commission down in Santa Cruz. So we're happy to have her here on SCTA.
Welcome. All right, and Chris, if you want to keep rolling with item 3.
Yeah, so I'll go ahead and turn it over to Drew for we have meeting notes for the February meeting. Is that correct?
Yeah, those are just the committee's information.
Just information. We
Yeah,
don't need to
just
take action on that.
The topics that were discussed at the last meeting.
Great. So, and then we have our agenda. So we just need action to adopt the current agenda.
All right, any changes to the agenda today? None. And then do we need a formal vote?
We can probably just,
We can do it by acclamation.
yeah.
Thumbs up.
Yeah.
Look like we're good.
Yeah.
Great. And then the next item is election of chair of officers.
Yes, so our current chair, Noah Housh, has agreed to serve another term as chair of the Planning Advisory Committee. So, but we'd like to go ahead and open things up for nominations and to see if anyone would be willing to serve as a vice chair. So the chair basically it's running the meetings, and we meet every 6 weeks or so to discuss agenda topics, and we'd be interested in having the vice chair participate in that as well and fill in when the chair is unavailable to run the meeting. So I'll go ahead and open it up to the group for nominations. We would need a nomination from the PAC for the current chair to be elected again for this next year. And would be looking for volunteers if anyone's interested in serving as vice chair.
I'll nominate Noah.
Accepted.
Any interest in vice chair at this time?
So one question I have, one thing, I have 2 meetings that I've identified that I won't be able to attend, but I'm gonna prioritize being here in person every time. And in my stead, I could also delegate JP Harris, the senior planner for the city of Cotati, to serve in my role to fill that gap. And if that works with the bylaws, then I've already discussed it with him and he's accepting that.
Yeah.
So I wasn't sure, and you can review it and get back to me on that, or get back to the group.
Yeah, I'll review and take a look because my intuition wants to think that the city holds the chair, so that makes sense.
So we can look into that as an option for the.
Yeah,
vice
and
chair.
I can fill in if vice chair.
Okay, great.
But maybe you should do a pitch for the benefits.
Yeah,
chair.
well, so thank you, Ada, good suggestion. So one of the reasons, well, one, I hadn't done it, so I was happy to serve and to support everybody. in this role, but also to educate myself on more opportunities to engage with SCTA, bring more benefits to the city of Cotati, have greater knowledge of their processes, so then I could, in theory, leverage some of those resources a little bit more. And it's been working out so far for us. Our active transportation plan is going to the city council for adoption in about 3 weeks. So far, the relationship's been great.
And it's maybe a 20-minute meeting every.
Yeah, very
6
brief,
weeks.
very brief.
Outside of the PAC meetings.
That's right. So everybody can think about it, let Chris know if your interest is piqued and someone could step in for a potential nomination to serve as vice chair. We'd appreciate it.
So we do have a nomination on the floor.
I do need a second before we can give a voice vote.
Second.
And can we do a thumbs up again?
Yeah, 2 thumbs up. So we have a quorum in the room.
Great.
So we can do the voice vote.
Thanks, sir. And
No,
thank
so-
you,
Yeah.
Noah.
Happy to do it. All right, great. So that concludes item 3. Item 4 is regional updates, and we have one from Plan Bay Area. And then it looks like that's SCTA.
Yeah, so I just wanted to give a brief update on Plan Bay Area today. So I talked to the project manager for the project, Chirag Rabari. And there's not a ton to report right now. There's a lot of work ongoing. So we discussed him coming back in June to give a more robust presentation on the plan, including projects, the forecasting, and everything that's going on this summer and over the next year. But I did get a updated schedule from him. So I do have a printout here. And Drew, if you can let me share my screen, I can bring that up on the screen. Okay. And I can talk through that as well. So let me go ahead and bring that up. Get the right thing here. So this is a look at the current schedule right now for Plan Bay Area. So this is the regional transportation plan. So it includes a number of different things. It includes a list of projects, programs, and policies for the region to help guide transportation development. And there's a pretty significant housing and land use component as well, including forecasts that end up in general plans and area-specific plans. So there is a pretty strong connection to a lot of the work that you all are doing. So you can see kind of what's happened already. We're at that green line. We are here right now. So one thing to keep in mind for the current plan is it's intended to be a limited and focused update, so not a wholesale rewriting of the plan. So just updating some things that need to be done from the last plan, Plan Bay Area. And so it's really focused on updating project information and identifying transit needs, gaps, and opportunities. So parallel to the plan or the regional transportation plan update, there's a project called Transit 2050 Plus that's been happening. And this is really digging into the regional transit system. So gaps and needs there. With the goal of having a regional transit network proposed at the end of all of that. So right now, MPC and ABAG are currently in the modeling and performance assessment phase. So they're looking at the cost effectiveness of different projects and policies and how they'll help them achieve the plan goals and targets. So they're planning on rolling that out in May or June. So that presentation, it'll be happening at the June PAC. I'm sure we'll involve quite a bit about that. So how the region's doing, how close it is to achieving, state greenhouse gas targets and other goals. Then the plan is to have an information item going to the Metropolitan Transportation Commission in July, covering the draft project list, revenue projections, and the housing employment forecasts. So look out for that. And I'll ask Chirag to also give a preview on the forecast for Sonoma County at that June meeting as well. So there'll be a lot of outreach happening over the summer. So it'll focus on the draft blueprint, which is really looking at the different policies and performance and equity outcomes. It'll include maps of the draft growth pattern, drafts of that transit network, and a look at the strategies as well as a presentation here again in June. The final adoption of the project list and blueprint will happen, all of that outreach happening over the summer in September. And that'll kick off work on the environmental process. So that'll happen through the fall of 2024 through 2025, with a goal of adopting the final plan and EIR in October of 2025. So just wanted to give everyone an update and a little teaser for that bigger presentation in June. So I've been following the plan, so I have a few answers if there are any questions, but we can pass them on to the Plan Big Area 2050 Plus team as well, if there are other questions that I'm not able to answer. But yeah, that's where things are at right now, and more to come at that presentation in June.
Great, thanks, Chris. Is there any questions?
As you know, in the last planned area, we had some pretty last minute changes to land use and all that kind of stuff. I'm wondering if we were successful this time in getting the feedback early on while they're back in the geography stage and all the jurisdictions weigh in on all their existing stuff.
So there's been a less of a focus on that because it's not tied to RENA this time around. So we're not really able to look behind the curtain yet. So, but there will be a chance to provide feedback over the summer. So we really will need to be engaged early on as part of the next plan update, because that'll be tied to RENA again. So I'm not expecting huge changes on the development pattern this time around, but from what we've seen from early numbers.
So the geographies are staying the same, and the growth. Okay.
Yeah.
Limited and focused update.
Yeah.
Well, I heard that part. I heard that part, and yet we've had a lot of staff changes in the area, a lot of significant staff changes in the area, and I can imagine that when we roll out, growth scenarios, we're gonna have some, wait a minute, this is wrong. That's not what my community looks like.
Right.
So avoid surprises. So this summer is gonna be the opportunity.
That's going to be the time to wait.
Okay, thank you.
Right. I don't have any questions, any comments or input. No, okay, I would just say I appreciate seeing the implementation plan kind of tracking along with the rest of the document. That's always helpful.
Yeah.
So looking forward to June. All right, so item 5 is the RCPA greenhouse gas inventory dashboard, and that's being led by BC Caps and Adam Garcia. I'll turn it over.
Excellent, thank you, Noah. My name is DC Caps. I work on climate here at RCPA, and I'll be presenting today with Adam. I'll have a couple of quick comments here and then pass it over to Adam, who's been doing the majority of the work on this project. Wanted to provide a quick update here. Spin this here. Excuse me, a brief update. We are currently progressing on the current greenhouse gas inventory, community-wide inventory for Sonoma County, analyzing 2022 data. So I'm currently working on that effort, and that'll be our 6th in a series of greenhouse gas inventories that's been done. When we complete this summer, we will have 32 years of GHG data countywide that we'll be able to look at for trends. In the past, as these inventories have been done and presented, really the data and all of the analysis is done in-house here, and the information that is presented up to our website is oftentimes a summary dash or a summary PDF, and some graphics and a narrative kind of explaining the information, but there's been very little ability for individuals to actually get truly into the guts of the analysis and really to do sorting and sifting through the data to look for any kind of additional information beyond what we've analyzed. And so one of the advances that we're working on, that Adam and I have been working on this year, in addition to just the standard inventory that I'm working on, we're also taking all of the past data and building an online dashboard, which Adam is going to share with you today, and some of you may have already seen this. And basically, it's an online dashboard using the Microsoft Power BI software. It is looking catalogs, as I said, GHG data from 1990 to 2020. This data will then be filterable by kind of greenhouse gas sector, by year, by jurisdiction. We'll be able to run queries on it of showing total GHG emissions versus per capita emissions. Be able to look at trends versus reduction targets, and produce a countywide emissions map. We anticipate for this dashboard, there are 3 primary users that we're kind of aiming for with this first draft of the dashboard. We're looking at local government staff, people like those in this room and who your colleagues at the cities and at the county who may have interest in this. We're also looking at, we have a number of community advocates who are very interested in this data and getting a little bit more in depth with some of the information. And then we're looking at ways to make this data set available and useful for general public users. What Adam is going to show you today is what we're calling version 1 of the dashboard. It is basically analyzing or displaying our past GHG analysis, emissions data, and some additional tools. We have some plans for future improvements that we're going to make over the upcoming months, and that we'll be releasing later this year. And that will include things after this first version. It'll include the ability to say, ability to download the data actually into Excel for further analysis. We're going to be working on a series of creation of profile pages for each jurisdiction. We're looking at incorporating household and business related recommendations and actions that local government is taking to reduce emissions. And we're also looking to incorporate a whole section on social equity indicators and resilience metrics. And just a quick example there. So in the realm of transportation, our current analysis and the GHG calculations basically take vehicle miles traveled by jurisdiction, convert those out into emissions values. And it's really just using VMT as the input and some MFAC data from CARB. So what the resilience indicators are going to look at are things like the percentage of EVs that are sold in Sonoma County on a quarterly basis, the gallons of gas or diesel sold in Sonoma County on a quarterly or annual basis. So it's going to be trending. It's going to be stats that we believe are trending in the same direction as our greenhouse gas emissions, but that can help tell a bit more of that kind of story, the well-rounded story of how all those pieces fit together. So those are kind of not to cloud the distinction between what Adam is presenting here today and what we have for future planned, but we're really kind of looking at releasing the version 1 of the dashboard this summer, and then a version 2 of the dashboard later this fall. So with that, I'll pass it over to Adam to kind of give a tour through the dashboard, and I think you're going to share directly from there, if possible, up to the screen. And then kind of what we're looking for is from this body here today is any initial impressions, any quick feedback that you may have. We don't have a lot of time to discuss today, but any feedback that you have today is very useful for us kind of taking the next step in getting version 1 up and online in the next week or so.
All right, thank you, BC, for the introduction. Adam Garcia, data analyst with SCTA RCPA. So as BC said, this is our version 1, and just to kind of reiterate, this is really looking at an inventory on past data. There's, I think, a big appetite to say what happens, if we do this project, what type of emissions will change in the future. But we're really looking just at kind of quantifiable data in the past for this effort, even in the version 2 as well. So starting off, this is actually the instructions page, but it gives us a good overview of the data and some of the options that are throughout the inventory dashboard. On the left, the page menu headings give us our main buckets of our sectors that we're evaluating: buildings, transportation, water, solid waste, agriculture, land, and forest. And then you also see those are the menu items in the upper right as well too. So right now we're in the instructions page. And so those we can jump to at any point, but before we go there, looking at another thing that's across these different fields are the filters. So when you go to buildings page, you can look and splice your data by jurisdiction, by year, activity type, and then activity name. So activity name is just kind of a more specific activity. And then at the very top of each page are cards or indicators that will also change based off what you have selected. It'll show the average metric tons of CO2 equivalent per capita across the year. So depending on what years you have selected, and then just the total as well. So both per capita and total. And then one that we just added shows from 1990 to the most current year, 2020. What's the difference between emissions for those items you have selected? There's also an about page that if you click here, takes you down to just a little bit more information. Let's see, this gives us just an overview of what the greenhouse gas inventory is, a few questions answered, and then down the lower right will be eventually where we can add a few more maybe data and links for information. So jumping over to the main first page. It's sometimes hard to do on the screen share.
This isn't live yet.
This
We can't go.
yeah, so sorry, thank you. I just dropped a link in the chat also. So if you do want to go and look on it right now, feel free. So this main page shows us kind of an overview of all of the information that we possibly could have access to in terms of emissions data. And so on the right, we see kind of a bar chart where we have our different emissions throughout the years, broken out by color. Down below are the corresponding emissions by city as well too. Front and center is a non-interactive chart at this point, but it shows us where we have come from in terms of our emissions from 1990, where we're at in 2020, and our ambitious 2030 goals. So then down at the bottom, we have our filters. So this then gives us a chance to look at Cotati. We can zoom in, look specifically at Cotati. If you want to look at two cities or select multiple filters, there's an option if you hold down the select key or command on a Mac. You can look at both of those. You can't do as much of a comparison on the charts, but you can see it. I'm sorry, yeah, you can see a difference in the table. And then as well, you can look at by year, activity type, and activity name. So moving on to the other sections, we're trying to follow a similar framework. So again, just looking at these indicator bars up at the very top or the cards, those also change as well. So if we want to, let's see, yeah, look at unincorporated county, everything on your chart then changes just to be able to show those particular values for unincorporated. Transportation is similar. And so as BC was saying, there are some indicators on here right now that tie directly into generating our metrics. So VMT, for instance, is on here. We also have SMART in terms of their diesel use, going back as far as we can. As we go forward through where there's data available through the current metrics we've posted, but in some cases we're somewhat limited. And then the last one I wanted to show you that's exciting is the land and forest. So this is distinct from the inventory that we've done in the past. It's more of looking at what we have in terms of inventory in stored carbon, both above ground and below ground. So we can break that out by land use type and city or jurisdiction. one of the notes that's come up, and there's a tooltip in the middle, is that in order to process the data between 2013 and 2022, we used a data set from the Landscape Fire and Resource Management, or land fire. There were a couple methodology changes between 2013 and 2022, so that may be why some of the differences are showing up. That might be like, why are there more wetlands or not? We also made sure that the city boundaries were changed between 2013 and 2022. So that could be another reason as well why those values are changing. So can't answer all of these questions, unfortunately, but maybe you can, start to pick them apart by looking at the data and understanding more what's in it. And I think with that, just mention that there is a link to this Sonoma County carbon inventory and sequestration study at the very top as well, if you want more information. And with that, maybe I'll stop and see if there's any questions. Again, we're looking for kind of feedback in case you see something wrong there, or definitely want to fix that in this version, but also just other ideas for the next version and potential uses as well. How can you see this being useful? Maybe tying that to what the feature might be in that version 2 dashboard.
Thank you, Adam and BC. Does anybody have any questions?
I have one, and maybe that might turn into a suggestion, but under the agriculture section, will there be any functionality to differentiate between crop-based agriculture and livestock in the future?
I can certainly look into it. Most of the, that really is, let's see, there is manure management and there is fertilizer use, and those are broken out. And I think the reason you're not seeing it is because the small green, the fertilizer use is so much smaller, or the emissions resultant from the fertilizer use having to do with crops is so much smaller than the emissions from the manure, that it's actually in there, but it's not showing up as well. So it's not apparent, but we can look at differentiating that a little bit better. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be great. It's just with, it's been in the news with this potential ballot coming up. So it might be helpful.
Very good suggestion. Thanks.
Great idea.
Any other questions from,
Yeah, I'm just curious that for the land and forest section, does that include the urban tree canopy effort that the county was undertaking, or is that more like, the regional forests or more?
Yeah, it'll be a regional snapshot. So not distinguishing by boundaries, just what was the tree carbon inventory in 2023. Does that answer? Maybe I'm not answering
actually, and I think maybe I can explain just a little bit. So that the land and water section here, or the forest and land section, is an outlier compared to our other data. All of the other data in this system is all data that we have collected and analyzed and are presenting because it ties into the emissions of the inventory. This section is coming directly from the county's carbon sequestration study that was done last year. And we are kind of using that data and presenting it as is. It's not well integrated with our other analysis yet, but we wanted to present it kind of side by side with the emissions, because that balance between emissions and into the atmosphere and sequestration efforts will be really important long term. So it is based upon the county study that was done in 2022, and there's a link here directly back to that original report.
Great, thanks.
Sure. I guess just one last comment that I'll raise or make note because it kind of came up in the question about whether this is online, because we're talking about wanting to finalize this. So this dashboard is currently online. It is running. It is available. The URL is kind of obscured, so it's really kind of in a testing phase. At whatever point, at the point where we get the final bugs worked out and the final kind of our final punch list done, we will then kind of embed this as part of the RCPA website. So it'll be much more of a public-facing presentation, even though it's going to be the exact same it is the exact same dashboard that's running now. At this point, it's kind of obscured behind the scenes to find it, so.
And one more addition that I wanted to add, especially thinking at the regional scale. One of the products that we want to be able to offer with the version 2 data is to really say this is a template using Power BI. I failed to mention that. That's a Microsoft product that uses Power BI that can be replicated at any county. We're going to put together a little how-to guide, and we basically kind of copied one from King County in Washington and said, what would it look like if we altered our data sets to then match what this is like, and then kind of grew from there. The other effort that we're looking at also is just trying to make sure that our data outputs in the table are consistent with ICLEI as well too, so that there's kind of that national standard that we're following suit with. It's able to report through those ICLEI standards. So that's something that we're really excited just to be able to, eventually have that as something that says, here's all the data, especially with the indicators too, thinking are these kind of statewide data sets. If we can get the granularity down to the jurisdiction, great, but at least we can get at the county-wide level that can then be replicated as well too.
All right, any questions or comments?
This is Kevin in Cloverdale. This is really a great job. And I like the way it looks and the way it's laid out. I don't know, for any planner in the room, like how do you see this being used by us? And we don't have to answer that right now, but I mean, could this be used for CEQA analysis, or, is it strictly reporting on our greenhouse gas reduction progress, or just trying to figure out a way to take this great information and use it?
Yeah, so thanks, Kevin. Just personally, as I saw it, I was thinking, one, our electeds really will be appreciative of this. Like he said, the presentation of the information seems very clear, great. I like that it's kind of showing historical trends. That's really what our electeds in Cotati are interested in seeing, is like, where have we been and where are we going? So I think the presentation and format of it is great. And so wearing my planner hat, I do think it would be helpful for your CEQA baseline analysis, right? Because you can get a very clear example of what your baseline is, especially if it's kept up to date, as data becomes available. And then you could compare it against projections from your VMT analysis. So it does seem helpful for CEQA docs as well, from my perspective.
Thanks, Noah.
I think speaking for the unincorporated county, we just passed the Oak Woodland ordinance, and we are working on implementation measures, what that's going to look like. And I could see the land and forest viewer being instrumental in identifying what is a functioning woodland and preparing mitigations for that.
All right, well, thanks, fellas. I was actually, as I was looking at it, I'm like, man, this would be a great tool if it was scalable, and it sounds like you all are already thinking that way. So yeah, really nice work.
Excellent, thank you.
Then I will move on to item 6. And that is also a presentation from Mr. Garcia. And we'll start with the activity-based travel model, looks like.
Right, let's change hats real quick. Okay. All right, so we're excited to be sharing with you a white paper today on our long anticipated transition to an activity-based model. This is a white paper by Fair and Peers to essentially kind of lay out what are the different options ahead of us. There are requirements that we have to be consistent with the regional travel model with MTC. And so in order to fulfill these requirements, they laid out several steps for us in that white paper. Just to give a quick overview though, so where we're at right now with our trip-based model is kind of a 4 sequential steps where we look at trip generation, trip distribution, the mode choice, and then the route assignment. So it's looking at kind of larger zones, where's the movement between these zones. And what's exciting about the activity-based model is that really it's drilling down to that individual and their circumstances. So looking at household data, person level data, what are the kind of choices that they have to make in terms of getting around and the limitations they have. So it gives us a much more accurate representation of travel conditions based off kind of travel choices and costs. The other exciting part of it is just being able to model active transportation a little bit better, just thinking about where those networks are and such. Let's see, so the report is hopefully not too dense, but has a lot of great information that I encourage you to look through. But wanted to maybe just stop there, see if there are any questions. If we wanted to talk more about kind of what the recommendations were, I'd be happy to. Ultimately, what was recommended was building off the Transportation Authority of Marin's demand model. They're already years into trying to make sure that their model is consistent with MTC. There's a lot of similarities in terms of SMART, the 101 corridor, that have gone into trying to kind of customize the TAM model for their purposes. So the kind of logical step, honestly, would be to try to just take what they've done already and keep building and customizing it for Sonoma County. There's some challenges with that, though, that we're on the edge of the Bay Area. So we have a lot more interaction with Lake County and Mendocino counties, which aren't necessarily modeled. So that would be an addition. Something that another difference would be that our current trip model does try to account for visitors. So kind of the tourist industry, that would be the TAM model does not do that, and does the regional model. So that would be an additional cost to try to account for, Alexander Valley, Southern Countywide areas. The other just small thing to note is that it takes quite a bit longer. You're, looking at individual people, simming them around versus aggregating trips. So the model runs would be, more on the order of a day or more versus than just, a few hours. So let's see, I think that's kind of a good overview. Anything else to add, Chris?
No, I think there are a lot of benefits, right? Like looking at individual travel patterns allows you to try and anticipate people's travel choices a lot better, and it does better at looking at chained trips and people, they're called joint tours, people driving their kids around and things like that, and active transportation and also equity and demographics. So it represents all that, but along with that, there's so much more complexity and data. So the data inputs are higher, and right now we can run our model in half an hour, 45 minutes, and this is 24 plus hours. There are fewer consultants that can do it as well. So, those are the limitations, and it's costlier. Luckily, our colleagues in Marin and other counties have jumped first. So some of the costs are already sunk, so we can build off what they've done. So, but, our model is kind of a classic old style model at this point, and activity-based models are kind of state of the practice. They're not even state of the art anymore. It's what most jurisdictions are using. So we need to move in that direction. So we had Karen Pierce put together this paper to kind of outline the pluses and minuses. And we're looking at kicking this off next summer. So we'll be keeping our model going for at least the next 3 or 4 years. And one thing that'll be part of the discussion going forward is if there's a need for a simpler tool that we can run quickly. We can keep our old model limping along for a while into the future. And the benefit of that is we could have something, if you want to do a quick analysis for like a road diet or a project, one of your consultants wants to do that, we could fall back on that, our old trip-based model, and still have that available. And then for the bigger analyses, like a general plan or area specific plan, the activity-based model would be more appropriate for that. So, yeah, so that's, I believe that's outlined by the consultants in the paper as well, but yeah, it's pretty long and there's a lot of detail in there, but it's a good reference. I don't think we have it up on our resources page on our website yet, but wanted to let you know it's out there and that this will be coming up over the next year or so. So yeah, a lot more happening next summer. We have our plate full right now, so we can't really kick it off yet, but wanted to get things moving in that direction.
All right, thanks, Adam and Chris. Any questions from the group? No, okay, comments? I would just add, I do think having the parallel models sounds like a good tool. Just because I could see the need, especially from, project-based analysis to just get something going. How would this model fit in with analysis done by consultants? You said it takes a day, like that's kind of opaque to me as how a traffic consultant engages with you guys to get access to the model, run, scenarios and get that information. I'm just not aware of that.
Yeah, right now there are kind of two different things that happen, and Adam, please jump in with any additions, but using our model is relatively simple, so we can run it in-house. So I've done that in the past and Adam can do that now. So if the consultant has the capability to run it, we'll package it up and give it to them and let them run it. Or sometimes we do it and pass the results off to them. For this bigger, more complicated model, most of the modeling work would be done by an outside consultant. So if you're doing your general plan and you have someone under contract to do that work, that need to be part of that scope, right? Like contacting one of the consultants that can run it. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of computing power that's required and expertise and things like that to be able to do that. So we'd be a little more hands-off in the process. So we focus more on the inputs and validation, making sure it's accurate and guiding what a consultant's doing. But the results, I think, outweigh that quick response time. But and a lot of times that quick response time is more important than having a big, complicated, robust analysis. So yeah.
Okay.
Trade-offs.
Yes, what I'm hearing is that will require a little bit more, or maybe a lot more coordination amongst all the various.
Yeah, and
costs. Yeah.
And as you know, I've been asking for model for a million years.
Yeah.
Well, okay, no, not quite that long, but believe me, I'm feeling my age today.
Yes.
Is there thought given to having a boiled down, free and easy for staff to use kind of model to do some exploratory analysis?
So things are moving in that direction. So ideally we'd have our activity-based model and there'd be some sort of online interface that either staff or a consultant that could go in and plug in some criteria, right? And, have it go into the model and spit out some results. We're not quite there yet, but right now the closest we are to that is you or someone shoots a request off to Adam. This is what I want to know. Here are the specifics. A quick model run's created. A couple. Takes a couple hours to get everything in and out.
You guys are great at that. I just, as this develops and becomes, it's going to get used.
Yeah.
And the more we can make it user friendly, maybe less bells and whistles unless we need a bigger analysis.
Well, it might
It's the
be-
computing power really that's gonna be the limitation, I think.
And maybe sometimes it depends on the request too, if it's like, we have some simple online modeling tools that we have a subscription, a temporary subscription to that we're looking at, that if you want to know origin and destination, you know, where are people coming from and going to in this census block group? Or the other one is, you know, what's the annual average daily traffic along these corridors? Can you tell me this? And starting to get to eventually be able to say, well, tell me the difference between 2019, 2023, 2022. So a project went in, you want to know what happened, how did that impact traffic flow? There's some very simple stuff, and I worked on that, looking at some projects with Fieldsburg just recently. So it could be, there's that light touch that can be, 10 minutes, easy, answer a quick question, or there's a bike path going in, we want these connections, and how will that then, you know,
Right.
that's
yeah,
a more
full-
complicated.
And of course, that's what I want. The more forward planning stuff, not.
Well, and Adam has all this experience creating dashboards now too, right? So I think
Yeah,
one approach is a lot of the questions can honestly be answered using the standard outputs from the model, right?
I think
Whether or
so,
not it's
yeah.
the simple one or the activity-based model, so. Adam and I have talked about moving in that direction, is having some sort of dashboard or portal where you can access that easier, right?
I think that's a great solution.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's almost like a database of versions.
Yeah,
of the
or
model run, right?
a tool you can, it could have different pages, right? Maybe you're interested in BMT, right? Or
Right.
volumes on a roadway or origins and destinations, right? Like you can click on a zone or location and give you like a spider plot showing where people are coming from or going to, things like that.
Tie it
Packaging
into-
that,
tie it into BC stuff.
yeah.
Great. Good, thank you. I'm
We can.
glad
work
to
some
hear
of
we're
that.
working that.
We can package some of that into the scope too, and we're kicking that out next summer. So we'll bring that to this group, but I think having some visualization type tools that package the results and. It's all pretty nerdy stuff and it's all code and stuff, but there's a lot of good data and making that usable and, freeing it out of the database, I think is pretty important.
Yeah.
So we can make sure to get that.
Yeah. Awesome, thank you.
Great. All right, anybody have any other questions or comments? All right, so was that item 6A and B or just item 6A?
Just add.
Okay, yeah. So we'll move on to item B.
All right, item B is just a quick overview of our ambitious year's activities to update that current land use and forecast land use of the trip-based model. So let's see, just to give a quick overview on that, later today, most likely, and thank you to City of Sonoma for already sending in your APR. Everyone else, I will be getting in touch with you today to get that started. Where this data goes into is really just trying to update our online map that shows all of the development across the county. I can drop a link in the chat to that, but that's also on our SCTA library map resources page. So from there, updating the existing land uses, trying to make sure kind of at that TAS, that zone level, that we have updated numbers for all the different land uses. We'll be having meetings with jurisdictions in May and June to go over that. I think Sonoma, we're going to be fast tracking you to get that started. So, and then finalizing those existing land uses this summer. And then following a similar process for the forecast land use, looking both at what the general plan build out would look like. So that's based off the individual jurisdictions general plan build out, and then also the Plan Bay Area regional forecast. So those are two forecasts we'll be updating and then meeting with each of the jurisdictions to finalize primarily the general plan build out. If there's some large discrepancies in the Plan Bay Area scenarios, then we'll kind of meet as needed with those jurisdictions. And then ideally finalize all of this in December and be able to have this then feed into our comprehensive transportation plan, a lot of other different great uses. So this will have our updated land use now for future project analysis to be 2023.
Great, thanks, Adam. Anybody have any questions on the travel model land use update schedule?
Just confirming, you want all our APR sent directly to you?
Yes, please.
Wonderful.
And I still have some updates for Rona Park that I need to update on our maps that I haven't forgotten.
Okay.
So one question I have is one thing we're noticing is, you know, we have our baseline analysis kind of in our general plan, and it's, you know, based on the various density levels of all the land use categories, but most projects are taking advantage of density bonus now. And so something to be aware of. I've been kind of thinking about how to fold that in. You know, I can't really keep up with all the state law housing changes, so I think there's some instances where those are specifically exempted from CEQA analysis, but it may still help for this type of work, right? Because, you know, you have your base density of 15 units the acre, but the reality is it's going to be closer to 22. And how does that fold into these types of things, you know? So that also may be a tool to use if you see a significant discrepancy between Plan Bay Area numbers and individual jurisdictions. You can maybe just bridge that gap with that assumption. So something helpful.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I think the builder's remedy projects are the other issue that we're distinguishing between what's current and then what's future as well too. So current, you know, given the complexity of where those projects are at, we might not include those given a jurisdiction's preference, but for future, would probably want to make sure that those are.
Do you want to know about major projects that came in after the beginning of the year?
It'll be relevant, I think, for our future scenario land use. But if you're
major.
Yes, then definitely.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think, okay, yeah, we'll definitely want to know that.
Okay.
And so if you're gonna send out your email, put that request there, because I know you guys do a really good job of keeping the active project list up to date. So just if you want that portion of the matrix updated with either this communication or at a future date.
Okay, we'll clarify.
Yeah, I need no problem, but just either way, if the email basically will respond to the data request specifically.
Understood.
Okay, great.
And no, I would just off what Jane was inferring to there. If there's anything that is really big or maybe higher profile, I'd really recommend that you pay attention to that and make sure that it makes its way into the model, because, you know, when general plans or other projects are being analyzed, if those types of projects aren't in the model, that's a big change.
From a CEQA perspective.
Yeah,
that's a
You got
good
it.
call.
You got to look at it.
Okay.
So you take care of that.
All 3,000 units or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm being transparent too, the same.
And it's not 3,000. That's an appropriated area.
That's right. Yeah. All right, well, that concludes item 6. Thank you, sir. Moving on to item 7, County Active Transportation Plan update, and this is from Dana Turry.
Thank you. Presentation. Little thing is always in the way. Okay. There we go. All right, so today I'm going to share with you our second milestone update for the Countywide Active Transportation Plan. Many of you are directly involved in this effort. So I'm going to go through the first part of the slides fairly quickly that kind of recap the purpose of the plan and kind of background information and vision and goals. But happy to go back anytime if anybody has any questions or comments they want to talk about. And I'll focus a little more today on kind of projects prioritization and kind of where we are, next steps in that road. So here's the scope of work for the plan. We are updating the countywide active transportation plan and at the same time updating local plans for 7 out of our 10 jurisdictions. So Santa Rosa, Petaluma and Windsor are all updating their plans with separate efforts on their own, and those are being worked on currently. But this countywide effort is really focused on these 7 jurisdictions as well as the countywide umbrella for the active transportation plan. We have kind of gotten through our first 3 tasks and we're pretty well into task 4. Although engagement and coordination is really going throughout the process of the plan. So the purpose of the plan update is really to kind of focus the plan. We are shifting from a bicycle and pedestrian master plan to an active transportation plan and really focused more on developing facilities for all ages and abilities. So creating safe spaces for people to walk, bike, and roll that are lower stress, lower risk, and create more opportunities for more people to use those modes of travel. And really focused on, all the concept of all ages and abilities is to develop facilities that is comfortable for people from the ages of 8 to 80 to be able to use. We are looking at regional connections, so identifying regional routes between jurisdictions as part of the countywide plan. And for implementation, prioritizing projects and identifying funding sources to focus and streamline that implementation. So here's our schedule. We're right here in April. We're kind of just getting into the second phase of updates to advisory committees. So we're going to the bicycle pedestrian advisory committees for each local jurisdiction participating in a plan, as well as various countywide committees such as this one. And we'll be starting off that kind of public engagement piece of that this weekend with the Climate Fest in Healdsburg, and have a series of events scheduled throughout the rest of April, May, and June, which I'll talk about a little bit more later. We have proposed projects and programs in draft form and development, and that'll be a big piece of this next round of engagement to review those. And have been working on kind of the funding and implementation piece as well. This kind of draft and final plan section here is for Katati's plan, because they had an accelerated schedule for their plan, and as Noah mentioned earlier, are going to have that final plan going to Planning Commission fairly soon. City Council, that's right. I'm already about to Planning Commission for adoption. So the other plans, the draft plans are scheduled kind of late summer, early fall timeframe, with final plans wrapping up toward the end of this year and then going for commission and council approval between December and February. So the first round of public engagement was last fall, and in addition to meeting with each advisory committee, we held pop-up events in all 7 of the jurisdictions we're working with on local plan updates, did a series of bike tours, and various other events. And we also have been coordinating with 4 different community benefit organizations to reach specific populations. We did an online survey, which resulted in 1,200 comments on the web map, interactive web map, and about 500 responses to our survey. We then followed up with technical workshops with each jurisdiction to review proposed projects that came out of the technical analysis as well as the first round of community engagement. Kind of the guiding principles for this plan are to align with Vision Zero action plan policies and projects and programs that support active transportation. And we're really using a lot of the analysis that was developed through Vision Zero to inform the active transportation plan around the high injury network and safety issues. As I mentioned earlier, we're really focusing on identifying infrastructure for all that serves all ages and abilities. And this is essentially the concept that the majority of people riding bicycles and pedestrians as well really are kind of fall under this interested and concerned category where they're interested in riding a bike, but really would feel more comfortable in a more protected facility with some sort of separation from traffic and or on lower speed roads. And where there's about 1% of the population that might ride a bike anywhere, regardless of the whether there is a bicycle facility. So we are incorporating industry best practices, and it's kind of a visual of the toolbox for bicycle facilities, including crossings and intersections, on-street bikeways, looking at quick build projects and amenities to improve the experience, as well as looking at accommodations for micromobility and other emerging technology. So in terms of bicycle facilities, in the outlined facilities shown here are kind of the lower stress facilities that can kind of fall into that all ages and abilities category. And similarly, we have a toolbox of treatments for pedestrian facilities that we are looking at as well. So we've made some tweaks to our vision statement since we met with this group last time, and kind of through a series of discussions, mostly with our Countywide Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee, but also feedback we've received from various local committees. I'm sorry, what's that?
Is roller skating?
So we use the term rolling really to encompass a number of different things that are not walking or biking. So it could be roller skating, skateboarding, being in a wheelchair or a walker, or some of the new emerging technologies, electric unicycles and whatnot. And so here are our goals for the plan, with some sort of tweaks to the descriptions of the goals from since we last met with you all as well. But our overarching goals are connected and reliable, safe and well-maintained, and community-oriented and place-based. So as I mentioned, we've developed draft projects for all of the jurisdictions that are getting local plan updates. And we've also identified some regional routes. This map is a little too zoomed out to read in more detail, but we do have various maps for each local jurisdiction that people would be reviewing closely in this next round of public engagement and being able to weigh in on. And so a part of this next round is really to ground truth the prioritization that we're using. We're essentially have created 3 tiers of priority for projects and for each jurisdiction, having 1/3 of the projects in the top tier, 1/3 in the second tier, and 1/3 in the, roughly 1/3 in the third tier. So we've developed a number of criteria to prioritize the projects, including safety, and that's projects that are either parallel to or on the Vision Zero high injury network. Sometimes the remedying the high injury network is very difficult given right of ways. So sometimes, in some cases, we're finding parallel routes that are more preferred for active transportation. We are looking at equity as a criteria using various different criteria that are used in federal, state, and regional definitions, and to encompass kind of alignment of that criteria for various different types of grants that are out there. We are looking at proximity to existing transit, as well as future smart stations, which is for this plan is really means the smart station in Healdsburg, the planned station there. So, really prioritizing projects that are a quarter to a 1 mile buffer around transit, kind of depending on the type of transit served. Prioritizing projects in proximity to schools and colleges, as well as looking at the regional network. So MTC has developed their regional active transportation network, and in which MTC is kind of prioritizing implementation and funding. And SCTA has developed a draft Sonoma County regional network, which is basically a subset of that MTC's regional network that we see as kind of high priorities in Sonoma County. Also prioritizing kind of the high access, low stress. So geographies in different geographies, kind of closing gaps in the low stress network. And through this next round of public engagement, we will find out if there are certain projects that get really a lot of public support that we might want to give some bonus points to. So that is our prioritization criteria that helped us develop kind of those 3 tiers of prioritization for each jurisdiction. And the tier 1 projects are really, the intention of this is to align those tier 1 projects with local and regional active transportation goals, and as well as kind of what we're seeing in funding requirements for various different grant types. And the idea is that they should guide public agencies in prioritization for implementation. So the next round of community engagement that I mentioned is just about to start. We'll be gathering input on the draft projects, priorities, as well as policies. We plan to hold one pop-up event at kind of existing events in each jurisdiction, working on a local plan, and then hold one larger community meeting in each of those jurisdictions to that is specifically about the plan, where we can have some large maps up on walls and have hopefully draw a large number of people interested in the plan. We'll also be creating a digital engagement tool, which will be an interactive map and that folks can weigh in on, as well as kind of a polling opportunity to look at different programs and get input on priorities for various different programs. The one exception to this is that we've suggested in the unincorporated county, just kind of given the big geography, that we do an additional pop-up event or two and forego the larger community meeting, but really kind of use the Sonoma County Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee as kind of that public space where folks can come to one specific location to weigh in on the plan, but being able to cover a little bit more area with more pop-up events there. Additionally, at the local or the pop-up events within cities that are developing plans, we plan to come with some information and tools to, if we are getting people at our booths that maybe live in the unincorporated county but are attending those events, where we can zoom around and look at different areas in the unincorporated county. So that digital engagement tool will be up by the end of the day tomorrow and ready for our event on Sunday. And we'll probably be sending some e-blasts around, so you should all be seeing that coming as soon as well. The next piece of this is funding and implementation. So kind of finalizing the priorities for implementation and identifying various potential funding sources for implementing those tier 1 projects. And here's just kind of a snapshot of what the outline for the countywide active transportation plan will look like. Volume 1 will really cover the countywide plan. And then volume 2 will include the local active transportation plans. And we'll include some sort of mechanism to incorporate the local projects for Santa Rosa, Petaluma, and Windsor once their plans are complete and adopted. And then volume 3 will focus on implementation strategies, so cost estimates and funding, and then we'll have our appendices. And then the local active transportation plans will, here's kind of an outline of what you could expect will be included in those local plans. It will also be included in volume 2 of the countywide plan. So we came to this group in October with a milestone 1 update. At this point, we have draft projects, priorities, and policies, providing an update today, and which will be followed by our second round of community engagement through the end of June. And we plan to come back to this committee once we have public draft plans in October. And we'll be doing a final round of public engagement in the fall and winter when those public draft plans are out. And that concludes my presentation. Happy to answer any questions anybody has.
Great, thanks, Dana. Does anybody have any questions?
Are you going to Taco Tuesday as one of the pop-ups?
That has actually, it's come up, and yeah, it's a great question. Since this countywide plan update is not including the city of Santa Rosa, and Santa Rosa is doing their own plan, we've kind of backed off of that idea. But it is I was actually there this Tuesday. A great opportunity to get a lot of folks, and I'm sure there are people who come from outside of Santa Rosa.
Like half the people that I know that live in the unincorporated county come to Santa Rosa for Taco Tuesday.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and maybe I'll talk with the city of Santa Rosa and see if maybe some collaborative effort, because I would, definitely want to have information about Santa Rosa's plan there as well.
Yeah.
Thanks.
My questions are along the exact same line. And I was really happy to hear that when you're in this location, you're gonna have information about this other location, but I just want you to be mindful of all the different outreach efforts that are going on at the same time, covering the same and overlapping geographies. County's got two specific plans. City of Santa Rosa is doing the South Santa Rosa specific plan, which is city and county, 1,400 acres. And there's, and everyone's doing these transportation plans all at the same time. So it's just going to be so vitally important to be in touch with one another and to have that information available, even if it's just somebody's business card or a code that they can scan or something. Have that information available because it is confusing to members of the public.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's, we hear that a lot too. And,
Yeah, I'm sure.
yeah, we've been having regular meetings with City of Santa Rosa on the, kind of South Santa Rosa specific plan area.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And well, maybe we could touch base a little more about the county's general plan or, yeah, the county's different, updates.
The litany of updates.
Yeah. And if there's some
You've got this,
coordination we can
you've
do
got
there.
2 elements underway now and 2 specific plans and yeah, it's pretty crazy everything that's going on. I mean, it's great. We get all this money from the state through ABEG MTC and we're doing all this great stuff with it, but I think some members of the public are starting to go, wait a minute. We're actually trying to map everything that's going out at the same time so we can help keep it all straight because it is confusing. And for outreach, is it all going to be bilingual and will the products that you produce also be produced in Spanish?
Our engagement, like all our flyers and the website and the surveys and polls are all translated. And events, we're kind of looking at who we expect to be at events and you know, we do have some bilingual folks on our team that can be there and which we have for some of the events during the round 1 engagement, but yeah. We are translating all of our engagement materials.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right, any other questions? So, okay, one comment I would have is I think it's really critical to reach out to the larger jurisdictions that are doing their plans kind of separately. Just for regional, you know, part of this effort is to get regional connectivity and the last mile stuff with SMART. All those overlap, and so I do think that's pretty critical. And then also just echo what Jane said about trying to coordinate some of these outreach efforts. So if any of the jurisdiction staffs that are here can think about their outreach efforts that they may have that other folks may not know about, sharing that information is always good, and inviting kind of cross-jurisdictional folks to come and be there. It'll make it better for the community members. It'll make us seem more coordinated and like we're better at our jobs, right? If we can, oh, I'm sorry, I can't speak to that, but there's somebody right here that is here to answer that question. So I think that's a very good point that Jane made that would get all of us a lot of mileage, the community members and all of our jurisdictions, if we can try to just help each other out and share that information. So be thoughtful if you have any outreach efforts coming up and share that with folks. And maybe we could even get a countywide outreach calendar going where we could all populate it.
What a great idea.
Right, and then even a Google Share Doc or something that we could just, as things come up, we could put it on that and we could all just know to look to that when we're planning something. I mean, that seems like pretty easy baby step that would get us a lot of mileage.
Yeah, and I think particularly for transportation, that's one of those things where people have no idea. I mean, am I in the county? Am I in Santa Rosa? Am I in Healdsburg? It doesn't matter. You just kind of cross over. So maybe not development, but when you're biking or whatever, it's important.
All right, thank you. We will move on to item 8, the standing updates discussion. And I don't know if we want to have anybody start. Some folks I know seem to have a lot to talk about. So,
Well, if you read the Press Democrat recently, no, we have another. Jesus. We have another housing development builder's remedy that came in, another 1,400 units at the airport. Yeah, and so underway. Yeah, just keep it on your radar. That's in addition to the roughly 1,000 units at SDC and the other 400 units at Hannah Boys Center and the other 4 or 5 or so builders remedy projects that came in. So we all have our work cut out for us. SDC will have some transportation related issues, given that it's basically a new city going up. So I would just keep that on your radar. We have a very comprehensive and complete and thorough, if I do say so myself, completeness letter for SDC. It's available on our website. I recommend reading that to look at some of those transportation issues that we've identified so far. Other than that, things are pretty stable and we are plugging away towards launching the general plan update effort in October, I believe, in earnest, kicking off outreach. So yeah, any input on that is always appreciated.
Great, thank you. And maybe we'll start north to south today on updates. I don't know, Kevin, if you're ready, put you on the spot there.
Yeah, no problem. I'll go quick. We're running out of time. So in terms of general plan, we're updating our circulation element, implementing the housing element. She talked about the active transportation plan. We're gonna have a UGB ballot initiative this November. And we're working on several annexations that were basically failing water systems outside of our town that the state is kind of forcing us to annex in. It's kind of a pain, but it's for the better. Working on budget, have several tax credit finance projects, affordable housing moving forward. I think I mentioned last time we did acquire through the Sonoma County Ag and Open Space, 240 acres right outside of town, which is really great. It's a beautiful piece of property that we're working to get the trails up and running. Working on a public art program, thanks to Windsor for been modeling an after your utility art box program. And that's it.
All right, for the city of Healdsburg, we continue to remain busy. I'm working on various land use code updates. We just finished updates to our inclusionary housing ordinance, and we just finished a downtown density housing capacity study. So that was just presented at council this past Monday with recommendations. So that was great. And we'll get we got some feedback on that, on how to increase our density in the downtown and possible GMO changes coming in the future. Other than that, city's well under construction and we have a lot.
Okay, thank you. Anybody from Windsor here? Didn't see anybody. All right, then we could run out to Sonoma. Jennifer, if you're ready.
Sure. We're in the middle of budget time. So just looking through everything that we've got coming up. City Council has identified housing and climate sustainability and trees in all caps as priorities this year. And it is in all caps. So we are going after the CAL FIRE grant. We don't have a lot of hopes for it, but we're gonna try. But regardless, we'll go for the tree inventory and canopy funding for this year, and then an urban forestry management plan for the following year. Climate Action last night identified a number of items, so we'll be requesting about $150,000 for climate action implementation, which includes the tree requests. Then we're also trying to get through our SB 743, our pro housing, tenant protections, all those housing element implementation things. I'm still looking for anybody that wants to partner up on ADU permit ready program if you're not participating in the Napa Sonoma program moving forward. So looking for some people that want to do that maybe together. Had an interesting call with Placer AI. Curious if any other cities are using them right now. Had them present to our chamber and our visitors bureau what they can do. It looks really interesting. I know Marin County uses it in their planning department, so just curious if others Placer's reached out to you. There's quite a few jurisdictions around here, but I don't know of any in Sonoma itself using their capabilities. They track your cell phones. And they see where you're going and what you're visiting, and so yeah, Just letting you know, they're tracking you. So with that, we're looking to do our land use update for the general plan this fall, which is why I've asked for the traffic modeling to speed up for Sonoma so that we can kind of get ahead of that with our environmental work. So that's it in a nutshell.
All right, thank you. Oh, thanks, Ada. Bye-bye.
Just a little thing, we're looking at putting out our request for projects. It'll be funding to support TOC implementing policy implementation. So looking at that coming out in late May. So I'll get to talk to you more, but I know it's worth.
Is late May a real date?
Yeah, because it was supposed to be in spring.
Okay.
So it still hasn't been approved yet. I'm working.
It's an A-Bay real date.
Well, exactly. I'm trying to get it approved. I keep explaining that May is summer, but.
Thank you, Ada.
Sorry.
I see you, yeah. So then we could go to City Santa Rosa?
Sure. So new things for us, we recently adopted a wayfinding ordinance that will allow for wayfinding signage in our downtown and in Railroad Square. And we also hosted the CalEd Economic Development Conference last week downtown and did walking tours in the downtown and Roseland. And we are also looking at whether we will be staying with the ADU center, and we're thinking probably not. So like Sonoma, we're kind of looking to see if we might want to collaborate with other jurisdictions to look at some other pre-approved plans. Also looking to get feedback from other jurisdictions. Our legal is looking into that recent Berkeley case about the all-electric ordinance, and curious if other jurisdictions are doing the same. We haven't made a determination yet, but yeah, if anyone has any feedback on that. And maybe if other jurisdictions are doing this too, I don't know. Our council recently had a study session on development impact fees for housing. So they gave direction for our staff to look into the impacts of reducing or waiving impact fees for affordable housing, but not for park fees. And then Santa Rosa currently has 2,147 housing units under construction and another 1,500 in development process. So that's it for us.
Great, thank you. Elliot, you want to go for Roner Park, and then we'll go out to Sebastopol.
Sounds good. Exciting news. The development service department is almost fully staffed at the manager level. There's 5 manager spots and we're getting the building official in 2 weeks. So very excited about that. General plan update is still moving along. That had a couple hiccups, again, kind of due to the staffing at the manager level, looking at fall-ish adoption now. Also moving along the code update, some housing element implementation code updates and some other administrative items. And the active transportation plan, and kind of trying to line up some of these timelines of the bigger efforts. Doing some process improvements and streamlining, been looking at ADUs, and then also conversations come up about deferring waiving impact fees and what that looks like and what our options and preferences are to help make housing happen. Downtown, we have completed the downtown developer interview step. Next step is site visits before selection of developer for the downtown site. And then again, motioning all the subdivisions. Some of the newest subdivisions start, and they, I believe, should have their models open a month out. They're moving very fast in their construction. It's very surprising. Willow Glen phase 4 is happening soon. Some motion in the University District, kind of just all the subdivisions are moving forward rapidly. And I think that's it from the part.
John did.
Alright, so for Sebastopol, we had our 80-unit townhome project, the canopy approved at City Council April 2nd. So next week they're going to design review board for their final entitlements, and then building permits. Our Woodmark project, which is the SB 35 project that we had on Big Avenue. Their first phase of construction is hopefully gonna be done by the end of this year. They really moved pretty fast on that project, which is great. We selected a consultant for our sustainable transportation grant that we were awarded. So we're in the contract phase right now and hopefully gonna get that to council either May or June. It's gonna be tough with a lot of the budgetary stuff coming up, so trying to squeeze that in there. And we have another 22 units of affordable housing that was originally stated since the fall. City council decided not to go in as a joint member with them, but they are still going through their design review process to get the entitlement for that project. So if they do find funding, they don't lose any traction. So I'm happy to see that. And I think that's about it.
All right, thank you for Sebastopol. Katati, briefly, we have our active transportation plan going to the city council, as I mentioned, so that's very excited to get that wrapped up. We have a Katati Village multifamily housing project that was approved. It's 177 apartments on Gravenstein Highway at Alder, so it's a big project for Katati, actually the largest project in Katati's history. That one's rapidly moving towards affordability agreement, final design review, and then they seem to be keeping their momentum going, and they have a second phase, Katati Village 2, across the street for another 150 units, I think, and they're hoping to build it all as one project. So that's a big deal for Katati. Same thing, we're working on our Santero Way specific plan update, so that's the neighborhood around the smart station in Katati. We're essentially going to be implementing the TOC policies, and there's a lot of developer-owned land in that neighborhood, and so there's a master plan developer who's kind of been involved in the process, and so it seems like that's going to be potentially a project coming out of that master plan pretty quickly. We'll see, but that's cruising along, and I'm still waiting on a final schedule to get that decided, but we're hoping for the fall. I'm working on a density bonus ordinance, so if anybody has any great examples, I'd love to hear about those. My plan is to try to not have to keep updating it regularly, so it's referencing enough state law and enough specifics, but not too much. So I'm trying to thread that needle, and the goal will be to get that done by July or so. So I'll have some template available if folks are still working on one in their jurisdiction. And then we are also prioritizing an impact fee discussion at the council level for next fiscal year. I'm interested in sharing ADU resources, so I'll coordinate a meeting. Anybody else wanting to jump on that, send me an email and I'll throw you into the meeting, because I think that's a great idea. And then I'm wondering if anybody else is having PG&E issues. So as far as actually being able to get projects built, so we have one of the things that I'm noticing, we have essentially a first-time developer who had a really great infill project approved, and they're not moving forward with the project because PG&E can't even give them a schedule for when they'll finish their design, let alone actually installing the infrastructure upgrades needed. So we're missing out on projects getting built, and also losing the ability to kind of grow up these developers. And I think specifically, it's really going to hurt kind of missing middle, smaller scale development and infill stuff, which is what all of our land use policies are prioritizing. And so I recently got the contact information for our state legislators, and I'm trying to figure out the best way to engage with them in a proactive, like supportive way. So if anybody else has any interest in that, please reach out to me. The more we can share our stories and let them know what we're experiencing in our efforts to get our arena met, I think will help motivate some change, I'm hoping. So just know that's going on. I don't know if we have anybody from Petaluma. No, okay. Any other input? Okay, we'll move on.
Smart just had a note in saying that mentioned that they're running free fares for youth and seniors.
Oh, thanks, Emily. Yeah, we saw that ad. That's great, step to make. Easy.
I just wanted to add in one thing, following up on the comment a minute ago about the all electric building codes. This is a statewide issue affecting a number of jurisdictions. And I wanted to let you know, RCPA staff is working with our colleagues at the county's Climate Action and Resiliency Division and through the Bay Area Regional Energy Network to basically try to come up with a plan for moving forward, resources that would be available, different pathways that are available. And there is quite a dedicated crew working at the state and regional level, bringing forth new alternatives that could be for jurisdictions that want to move forward with all electric reach codes that would be more legally defensible. So so I think that we can play a leading role in trying to pull together some sort of a coordination meeting, at least to share information in the next couple of months and figure out what the next steps are. So.
Is that being discussed on the code calls, the code reach calls that I'm just learning about?
There is, some of the updates around some of that are being discussed. There's, Bay Area Regional Energy Network holds, kind of what they call open reach code calls.
Yeah.
And then there's also a statewide codes, call that happens. And I'm not, I'm tangentially involved in a bit of that. I'm not deeply involved right now, but there's a number of resources that are coming available that I'm hoping we can package together as a nice playbook at least, and then jurisdictions can kind of figure out what fits best for them.
And how will that be disseminated to us?
At this point, there's not a specific plan. I think everybody is figuring out, pivoting to kind of figure out what the next steps are. But I will coordinate with Tanya as well as with our other colleague Anna and with our colleagues, specifically Christine Condon at the county to try to pull together information and to kind of figure out kind of what next steps would be.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Okay, thanks everybody for the member updates. And then do we have one last item on the agenda, Chris?
Public comment.
For public comment?
I think we have any public.
No members of the public are online, I see.
Okay, seeing no members of the public online, we will close public comment. All right, thanks everybody for attending and meeting adjourned.
I convinced my climate action to postpone discussion. They can start thinking about it and getting community input on it. But right now I postponed it because we're getting ready to start the code update.